Men don't pick women, women pick men.
Oh, I agree with you.
So basically, you've already been sized up, divided up, and caught across the bar. And when you tilt the glass, she's already made a decision. And the key element is, what did you base that decision on? Because if you're just basing it on a physical look of someone, you missed out on the mark of having a really good guy that maybe doesn't fit that description of what you think you want.
In a world where stories shape reality, one woman dares to ignite the soul. Hsanni Scott Matthews, visionary poet, author, and filmmaker, has carved a legacy of truth and imagination. As CEO and executive producer of Soulfire Productions, she crafts narratives that transcend borders and awaken hearts. From her early days as a travel writer to founding Telemon, a pioneer marketing firm, Hsanni's journey is a testament to creativity and resilience. A founding member of the African American Travel and Tourism Association, her influence resonates across industries. Hsanni, welcome to the Maxed Out Podcast Studios. How are you, dear?
I'm so thrilled to be here, Todd.
Are you really?
I am absolutely thrilled.
You know, the first question people are going to ask, like, how in the world did this beautiful black woman end up with a middle-aged white dude in his podcast to sit down and rap?
I came here to educate you.
All right, what you going to educate me on?
Just how the diversity of people getting together is so important in this time. And I noticed you. I noticed you really from your podcast. And I can't believe I'm sitting here. But on top of that, you're kind of cute.
Oh, okay, Miles. What are we going to do? Well, look, I think this is really incredible because if anybody that follows me knows that diversity is a huge part of my life. And I want to present shows and content to people where they're able to see views and able to see people from all kinds of different walks of life. And I think the incredible stories out there are how people like you and I from two completely different worlds, right? Like different walks have come together, and we're here to talk about entrepreneurship, your journey, how you got where you're at, and really just give an incredible story to people that I know that they can learn a lot from you. And I know there's a lot of, women out there that will latch onto you. And I'm telling you, there's some exciting stuff. We're working on some social media stuff. And as we're filming some of your poems and your storytelling, I'm kind of blown away. And I can't wait for people to get their hands on it and really see what you're about, Hsanni.
Well, the story starts probably from birth, but I'll start at 17 when I got pregnant in high school. And my dad was the chief of police of Jefferson Township and was very upset with me that I decided to keep this child, and told me to get on welfare, take care of myself and the baby the best way I could. That he wasn't going to send me to college, although I was top in my class. So I had to get out there and work for my child, and then sneak in classes wherever I could, and learn people, learn what's acceptable. Because back there in the 60s, it wasn't good to have a baby in high school.
Yeah.
So I found a place that I could go to, graduate with my class, stay top of my class, get a good job, and eventually I got married to my first husband.
All right. Now you're a storyteller, you're a filmmaker, you're a poet, you're an author. When was the first time, like, do you remember an age or a moment where you're like, man, I'm good at this, I can write, or I have a passion for writing or poetry? When did that happen in your life?
Oh my God, I don't know a time when I wasn't a creative. At 8, I was creating stage plays for my grandparents and using my brothers to imitate what I would tell them to say. I mean, I would come home from school and gather them around me. I had 4 brothers, no sisters, and I'm the oldest, and tell them stories and capture their attention. When my mom would be cooking, she wouldn't have to worry about where we were because there I was in the middle of the living room telling stories.
How many brothers and sisters did you have growing up?
Growing up, I had from my mom 4 brothers. When my mom and dad divorced, I was 10 years old, and subsequently, years later, my dad had more children, two girls. So basically, there's a niche that says diversity stayed in my family because I've got a sister here and brothers here, and then just people in general gravitated to my family because we were just periods of truth that other families didn't have. Um, my mom would cook for everybody, and when she's cooking, I'm acting out, I'm creating, I'm making folks laugh. That was my life.
Yeah. So it was just kind of always embedded in you. Like early on, you knew that was what your passion was.
I love to read.
Yeah. But your story, like when you go to college, but you end up at Central State University, right?
I ended up Central State because I got a phone call from a guy that was a good friend of mine from high school, and he knew that I was attending Sinclair and going into international business because I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. And I took Japanese at that time. I thought I was going to go in and start working for some Japanese firms. And he said, "We need you at Central State. This dean can't get along with anybody, and if anybody can turn him around, it's you." And I ended up graduating finally with my BA from Central State University at 40.
At 40. Wow.
At 40.
Now you were in education for quite some time, right? You got taught in the inner city schools for a long period, right?
Oh, Todd, can I tell you that story?
You I'm all ears. I'm here all day. You got me all day.
Let me tell you, I just fell into education both times. As the administrative assistant for the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Melvin Johnson, I decided that I was going to move away from that and get into my field of journalism. And so I moved to Atlanta and I founded Telemon. It was a marketing and advertising company. And what I wanted to market was travel and tourism for African Americans who had the wherewithal to go across the globe. And I decided at that point to come back to Dayton and do a magazine as well. So I got an office downtown Dayton on Main Street. Uh, and my attorney happened to own that building and let me sit there for 6 months to build my magazine. And I got homeless as a result because I didn't have any more money. My kids were all grown and I didn't have any more money. So I just lived in my office and someone told on me. So he came to me and told me I had to leave my office, which I denied. I was never there. I was going to admit that.
Right.
And he said, "I got an apartment for you, but you're going to have to pay for that." So a friend of mine said, "Hey, you got a degree, go teach. You can do a substitute teaching job and work when you want and travel when you want." I said, "Hey, that sounds good." And they at that time were paying something like $75 a day, and I thought, "This is great. I can do this." And fell in love with education and stayed there until 2007.
So during that time, though, you never lost sight of what your passion was, which was writing and tourism, journalism, things like that, right? Like you
Never.
continued to work that even while you were teaching, right?
I mean, I started writing, like I said, at 8 years old, but I started creating poetry, oh gosh, since high school. I mean, here I am pregnant thinking that this loves me and he's going to marry me. I don't have to worry about it. And when he was confronted, he was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." What? Yeah, that, I've never even been with her.
So I think we're going to get into it a little bit later, but what we haven't said yet is now that I've found out your poetry and your storytelling, it can be a little spicy.
Yeah,
So,
because
do you think that story you just told me about the guy you thought was going to marry you and take care of you, and then it doesn't work out? Did that fuel any of your motivation to kind of be more of a spicy storyteller?
well, first of all, I had to understand how love is actually realized not just for the individual of yourself, but for the individuality of the person that you think loves you back. And as women, I think we're easily manipulated. I think you guys have one on us. Like you said, what brought me uh, an interest in you as a young middle age, because to me, middle age is like 70, not 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's the essence that you portrayed. and that'll draw a person in. So I realized that I was drawn by what this guy was giving me. He was giving me attention. He was telling me things that my young mind needed to hear that I always had wrote about but never experienced. Because of course I kept a diary that my mother found and was reading, so she knew everything I was doing. I wasn't hiding anything in my diary. But my diary was like a foray into today's spiciness, because what he gave me was a sense of not only the feeling of I could be loved, but it was excitement about what I was about to encounter with that relationship.
Now, do you consider yourself like a hopeless romantic always? Like, is that kind of how you've always felt? Or
I hate that term, hopeless.
yeah, I know, but you can't be hopeful unless you've experienced hopelessness.
I don't think that being hopeful allows for hopelessness, because hopelessness can lead you to be um, a vagabond in life. You just don't feel like you're ever going to make it. But if you're constantly dreaming and hopeful and deciding on what you want your life to look like, then you're not going to let go of it. Because I've had pitfalls in my life, but I don't let those pitfalls keep me there. It's almost like you get up and you say, "Oh, baby, you hurt your knee. Let me kiss it and make it better." That to me means that, oh, I don't have to deal in the fact that I'm hurt. Someone's going to kiss it and make it better. That is the female dream. So they can't live in hopelessness. Now, I don't think, given to what I understand about your trials of growing up, that you ever felt hopelessness. I think you felt, I can do this. It might take a minute, but I can do this.
It's not exactly accurate. There were periods in my time before I had my success, when my house was foreclosed on, when my cars were repossessed, when I didn't know how I was going to pay the next bill, where I felt hopeless. I didn't know that um, how I was going to be able to get through life. I didn't feel like a man. I didn't understand the feelings I was feeling, and I felt like there was nowhere for me to go at that point. I was in a very dark period of my life, um, physically, mentally. It was a very challenging point, and I think we all look at things that we say like I kind of just said it on a whim, right? Like unless you've felt hopelessness, you can't feel hopeful. And where I really take that from is I'm a big believer that to understand how to win and to really accept how to win the right way, you have to know what it feels like to lose. Now, I'm not saying you have to have failures. I'm not one of the influencers out there that will tell you that I have failed a bunch of times in business, because I haven't. I've had very good success in business. But I think that you have to have a couple losses here and there to understand what that feeling is.
That's the key word, losses. So, yes, this gentleman rejected me. Do I go ahead and believe that no one's going to love me because he rejected me? Yes, my dad stepped away from me because he had this idea, as his first child, only female of that particular marriage, that I was going to be something because I could read at 5 years old. Should I think that I'll never be able to accomplish my life because of those pitfalls? I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah, and that's not what I'm trying to say either. Let me try to persuade you. I want to bring you on my team. I want to bring
Okay.
you on Team Todd. The minute that you realized that that relationship wasn't going to work out, where what you had thought was going to happen, you were going to get married to this guy, have a kid with him, like in that moment, in that day, and that very single time right there, you're telling me immediately that you kicked on and said, "Oh my gosh, there's a better life out there. There's so many more guys out there." Or did it take you a small period of time? It could
That
have been a day, but like in that moment, right then, were you feeling very hopeful?
pain is um, it's not something you can escape, even if everything is going swell with you. I've
Right.
heard so many people say, "Yes, I have all the money in the world, but I don't have love. So therefore, I have a missing inside of me." When that happened, I took on another frame of mind. This is not going to happen to me again.
Hmm.
I didn't feel hopeless. I felt like, no, no, no. Hsanni Scott is not going to allow that to happen to her again. You've been foolish. You thought because you felt a certain way, someone else is going to feel that same way with you, even though they portrayed all of the dramatic dreams that you created in your mind didn't happen.
Yeah.
So no, Todd, you and I probably would spend longer than this podcast would allow. I'm not going to subscribe to hopelessness.
Okay, but you agree you had a little bit of pain.
I've had quite a bit of pain, and it was something that I felt I brought on.
Yeah.
Because again, as we grow, you're supposed to learn from your experiences. But I was busy being a mom. I got married eventually, had another baby. That didn't work out. So here I am now with 2 children, and I'm still writing. I'm still doing my poetry. So I moved to California, and I wasn't there a good year before I was married again and pregnant again. And that didn't work. And there's just so many stories in my life where things didn't work. And what happens? Did I stop writing? No. I put all that pain and all that misunderstanding into my literature.
So I understand you don't want to subscribe to my word hopelessness,
No.
but you just proved the point that I really wanted to make,
Okay.
which is in entrepreneurship, there's a reason why some people are entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs, and a reason why some are not. There's a reason why we have middle class in America that will always be middle class,
Right.
and we have a class of people that become the 1% or live a different type of lifestyle somewhere in the middle that have had some success. And what you just described is the exact mindset. Somebody that will struggle with success in their life will be the ones that have, let's not call it periods of hopelessness. I just use that word to spark you a little bit,
I
but
knew it.
periods of pain. When you have those periods of pain, you have 2 decisions. You either allow that to hold you down and become some type of chain on you, or you take that pain and you use it how you described, which is fuel for your motivation to achieve more, to be more, to do more, and know more that there's so much more out there for you to do. And the ones that can't use it the way that you just described are the ones that will always be held down in life and be unhappy. And I think as we talk about entrepreneurship, that's what people have to understand is it's a different type of mindset. You have
It
to look at
is.
things differently. And the ones that complain, the ones that always feel the victim, the ones that always feel like society's against them and that they can't get ahead in this world are the ones that will never experience success in entrepreneurship or true happiness. And that's my opinion. I just sparked you with a hard word because I know it would drive you into telling me how you deal with it.
So you wanted my secrets. Okay.
Uh-huh. That's it. That's it.
You know what? Because words are important, my husband calls me a wordsmith because he is one as well. So he recognizes how I can take that word and create a story with it, create a life of it just by one word. But what I've done with that word is I've integrated it with the pain that you just talked about.
Yeah.
And I speak with women on that basis when I ask them, how do you feel about your relationship? So when I hear that, I take it back to the way I write because now I have someone else's feeling to institute into characterization.
All right, so then I think we both agree women are easily manipulated, guys are easily manipulated. I think the difference is that guys oftentimes try to put on their armor coat, their steel exterior, their tough guy, right? And they don't show it as much as women, but I think guys are easily manipulated too. I've had a ton of friends, and even myself, like we wanted relationships, we wanted a certain type of gal, and if there was a certain type of girl or woman that we wanted, if she fit into that and she said the right things to us, man, she could have anything she wanted. Do you believe that? Like, do you think that happens with guys?
Men don't pick women, women pick men.
Oh, I agree with you.
So basically, you've already been sized up, divided up, and caught across the bar. And when you tilt the glass, she's already made a decision. And the key element is, what did you base that decision on? Because if you're just basing it on a physical look of someone, you missed out on the mark of having a really good guy that maybe doesn't fit that description of what you think you want. So when I write, I put all of that in there. I put that sensuality that you experienced earlier when we shot our little poetical thing. I talk about the things that women share and the things that men share because men look for women that other men may want. So they could, hey, this is mine. This is my swag I got on. She like what I look like. Does she? Does she know what she's getting just by a look? That's how I got hooked up with having a baby at 17.
Yeah.
Because the guy was a basketball star. He was 6'7", and I was like inching towards 5 feet. He was 3 years older than I. But that look and that persona is what I thought I wanted. So I gave in over and over again, maybe.
Yeah, I think the power of attraction between man and woman is one of the most interesting
Oh my goodness.
topics, and I could talk about it forever because, um, again, as we, a little wordsmithing that guys don't pick women, women pick guys. There's some truth to that. I don't think it's that we pick or don't pick. I think that women are the ones that close the deals. A guy can pick the woman that he wants and the type of woman that he wants. That doesn't mean he's going to get her. And unless that woman decides that is what I want in my life, the guy's never going to get her. But I do think that a strong guy, a confident guy, a guy that has a little bit of game, if you will, can certainly turn the bar in his favor when talking to a female. There's a reason why some guys have been good at getting girls and some guys aren't. And a lot of it is those personality things, right? And we have a sense of persuasion to us, not manipulation, persuasion that can certainly take a female that we're attracted to. And by the way we interact with her, by the things that we say to her, by the way that we make her feel when she's in proximity to us, we can either convince her that she doesn't want to close a deal or we can convince her that she needs to close that deal. But ultimately, it's usually her decision.
It is just exactly how I got swayed into that first relationship and had that baby, because he had that confidence, and uh, I was intrigued by the fact that little bitty short me he was interested in. And he had all those young ladies that were taller than me, built better than me. He chose me. And I often wonder, we don't talk anymore, but I often wonder, why do men select what they select? I mean, what is it? Because again, I'm in high school, so I'm growing into being a young woman. And I didn't quite get that education that I needed to make a wise decision, I think.
Yeah, but that happens sometimes. Now, I'm going to do something here I've never done before.
Okay.
I've never told the story about my first date with my wife. And I feel like in this conversation, I feel comfortable sharing it with you because it plays right into this. And I think it's a great example of what we're talking about. My wife is gorgeous. I leveled up. She was too good for me. All right. Um, just a beautiful, beautiful girl. Now back then we had like some MySpace and we got hooked up a little bit through one of my friends. I was in law enforcement. One of my friends was shot in the line of duty, ultimately passed away. And as I was visiting him and talking with one of the nurses, she said, "Man, I have this friend that you would just adore. You guys would get along. You'd have a great time. Like you guys have a lot of great personalities. No relationship. You guys are both single. You don't want anybody. You'd be great to meet. Can I hook you guys up?" And I said, "Well, sure." And when she did that, a couple weeks later, I didn't hear anything. And then she's like, "Maybe it's not a good idea. You guys actually went to the same high school. And maybe it won't work out." She was a few years ahead of you. Like, you know what? I don't know. Maybe send me her name anyway, just in case. And when she sent me her name, I was like, oh my gosh, like she is gorgeous. I knew her, but we weren't friends and we didn't run the same circles. And she ran in a little bit of a rougher circle in high school. Like I was the athlete. I stayed out of trouble, whatever. And she dated some guys that were a little rougher. And we started talking a little bit and she invited me out to a bar and a bar in a little rough part of Dayton here. And that day, because I was a cop at the time, she said, "This is like an East Dayton bar. It's a little bit rougher. I don't know if you'll feel comfortable in here." And I played it off. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I might be a little nervous." But what I was doing, I was working off duty at all the nightclubs in Dayton. I worked at all the club, like all the rap clubs, all the hip hop clubs. Like everybody in Dayton at the clubs like knew me. I wasn't afraid of any of the bars. So when we got there, I walked in and immediately everybody was like, "Oh, Todd, what's up?" Like everybody slapped my hands. I bought the entire bar a round of shots. And right after that, I left. I didn't say a word to her. Me and my buddy, we left. And about 15, 20 minutes later, I started getting texts from her, where are you at? What'd you do? I'm like, oh, we just headed out. You want me to stop back by? Well, of course I wanted to stop back by. But I knew because she was gorgeous. Like everybody wanted to date her, right? Like she's the girl that when she walks in the bar, she didn't have any guy in the bar and all the guys threw themselves at her. I knew I had to be a little bit different. And despite the fact I wanted to go over and grab her and just, make out with her right in the middle of the bar, I'm like, I got to play her a little bit. So I bought the round of shots and I left, didn't say anything to her. And then she started texting me. And then we got in the back of my buddy's Neon and we went down to a club in downtown Dayton and we made out the entire night and the rest of our life is history. But that goes back to like the power of persuasion, the power of how we interact with one another. And I think that's one of the most incredible things that men and women do together.
You really set the preface for my book, The Rhythm of Love,
Hmm.
because you have a certain type of man that understands what it's going to take to get the object of his desire. And he's confident in the fact that given an opportunity, he'll win. He'll win that woman. He'll be exactly what her dreams were made of because he's had enough practice, had enough understanding about the kind of woman he wants and the women he's encountered and what it would take. And women like a challenge like men. Hey, are you gonna step away and I know I could have anybody in this room? How dare you?
Hmm.
I love her.
We still laugh about that. Now she'll never tell the truth. She won't ever tell the truth. Matter of fact, my kids were down. I got an 18-year-old, 17-year-old girl, 13-year-old boy, and we were in California here recently or together. And I was telling them that story. She will not be honest about it. She still wants them to think, oh, he came in, he was all over me, he wouldn't stop talking to me. And she's laughing while she's saying it because she knows it ain't true. She knows daddy got a little game, you know? But um, that's just some of the powerful forces in the world and society. And one of the things that intrigues me, and I tell guys all the time that I mentor in business, it's the same way with entrepreneurship. It's the same way with business. You don't have to be the best dressed guy. You don't have to be the most handsome guy in a negotiation. You don't have to be the most well known guy in negotiations or business talks. You have to understand the power of persuasion, the power uh, of relationships, and how to get people to do the things that you want them to do, and then believe that it's their idea. Like that's one of the most powerful business tools that we can possibly use. You stick me. I'm 5'5" 3/4. I'm medium build. Like I used to be an athlete. I used to be a little bit thinner. But you put me into a room with 20 guys. Like I'm not going to be the best looking guy all the time. I'm not going to be the most desired guy every time. But if we start talking about how we interact with people and our words and the confidence levels, oh, I'll blow them away every time.
You have to.
Yeah. But that's what I see in you though. You have this natural and your husband's sitting here in the room, right? So I'm going to be careful with what I say. But you have this natural kind of smooth, seductive style and delivery with your words and how you portray your stories and how you even just talk about your life. And I think that's one of the things that people are drawn to you about.
Let me tell you a story. Uh, I've got many stories, but first I want to tap in onto your wife and you and your relationship. I met my husband uh, in a physical way in 1979, but I heard about him in the 77, 78, and he's a big poet. Nikki Giovanni discovers him. I spoke with Nikki Giovanni. We had a long talk. She told me to move to New York in order for me to make it, but she takes my husband and creates a pathway for his stardom in poetry. I did not like that brother.
Yeah.
I had never seen him. So I didn't. If you pointed him out on the street, I would have known that that was David Matthews. But the name David Matthews irked me to no end because why are you acting as if my literature is not on par with this guy? And I lost an agent who wanted me to go to theatrical school so I could perform my art like he did. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. My literature is way different than his. So here we are. We met through a mutual friend. Still didn't know that was David Matthews, but I saw this tall, dark, beautiful man, and he never said a word. They, hello, we're hungry. Can you feed us? I fed him, and I'm still looking at this guy who's not saying anything. I don't know if he knew who I was or not, because I didn't have the stardom that he had. But here, years later, we got to be friends. I was so embarrassed about how I was about him. He was married, so I didn't, you know, try to hone in on him. But if she could have read my mind, lots of times I was like, oh my God, this guy. So his wife passes away. I'm doing a poetry show at PNC, Arts NX downtown Dayton, and I don't have a headliner. I've got people coming from Canada, people coming from New York, people coming from Indianapolis. They're not headliners. Nobody knows of them other than they're really good poets. And Dave and I, we had been talking. I was trying to really console him about the passing of his wife, and he needed something else to do because he was doing his music, but he hadn't been doing his poetry in a while. And I said, I think I'm going to close it. He said, I'll be your headliner. And he came in, and I just fell back into the 70s mode and said, he's single now.
Mm-hmm.
And I let that atmosphere that you created in the bar come into my life with him. And I ended up asking him, and that was 2019. In 2021, I asked him to marry me.
So you chose him.
I thought I did, but in reality, I think that we chose each other years
Yeah.
ago. And because he's the kind of man he is, he could not act on that. He was recently married. I mean, and he was traveling and doing all of that, but there was a chemistry there. So I see that with a lot of people who don't act on that chemistry. They miss out.
Yeah.
They miss out.
Well, I've never been a subscriber that we all have one soulmate out there. I think we have a lot of people out there that we would connect with given the right opportunities, given the right environment. But if my soulmate was in, I don't know, let's say Alaska, and I live here in Ohio, well, how the hell would I ever meet him? Like there's no, I don't believe that there's some like love doctor up there that says, okay, like on this date, these people are going to come together. It's all about our experiences, it's all about our life and how we end up. And that was one of them, right? Like a lot of people might have never, there's a reason why on Craigslist, they have a section that says missed connections. Have you ever seen that?
I've
And
never been on Craigslist.
I haven't been on there forever, but I remember years ago, I read it as like a whole section says missed connections, and people would be like, I was at the Sunoco on Smithville and Linden. I was filling up my car. I was in a red Honda. You were in a work truck. It had
Oh my
lettering on it,
God.
and you were so gorgeous, but I was afraid to talk to you. If you see this, we're meant to be together. Like, hit me up. You never seen those things?
No, but I think it's hilarious. First of all, if I saw that on Craigslist, I would run. I would not gravitate towards that kind of message.
But I've seen stories where people have done that, like, and they're happily married now, and they're like, "Oh my God, it was my soulmate." I'm like, "No, you created an opportunity by posting on Craigslist to meet a person that you thought maybe you might have a connection with,
Right.
and it just happened to work out." Like that's what love is, right? And if we had one soulmate, and that was really true, we would not have any divorce in our country.
Let's just say this. There are a lot of people that get divorces and end up getting remarried
Yeah, yeah,
because we're not mature enough to understand what being mated means. And me being forever in education, every class I ever took, I filled one class with psychology. Why? I wanted to know what made me tick. What makes me me? I wanted to be comfortable with myself, which I guess is the reason why I did not allow myself to subscribe to hopelessness, because I knew the more I dug down into it, the more I would understand not only myself, but people around me. So I would read that as a scary thing.
Yeah.
I would not want to subscribe to that because there's too much going on. I'm a big viewer of 48 Hours.
Do you know what scared me? Women that took psychology classes.
Oh, wow. Really?
You're not going to psychoanalyze me. Like, I'm not going to be laying in bed and you think that I'm on your couch and you're going to try to tell me all the world problems that I have.
Oh,
Like, I know that I
gosh.
had issues with my parents. I know that I had some adolescent things that jacked me up for life that I never dealt with and that I have trauma from
But
my
she had to
childhood.
tell you.
No, she didn't. I don't need her to tell me my problems. I already know my problems.
She had to tell you that wait a minute, she had to tell you that she understood. She should not come in and not have a degree and try to tell you this, and this. But you have to understand that women with a motherly instinct will do that even without taking a psychology class because my husband tells me all the time, I don't need another mother. And I'm like, I'm sorry. That's all I've ever been. I mothered my brothers, I mothered my children, and maybe I mothered most of my men. That's me. But he will say that. I don't need another mother. And I think that's what happens when women start attempting to be an empath of some sort. Uh, Nobody's giving any sympathy. We're just saying, okay, we understand because of the environment that you grew up in. And the same goes with women. Your wife might have been the object of everybody's desire, but was she comfortable with herself that whole time, or did she create that persona so that she can maneuver herself in a world where she may not have felt she really existed? As a writer, I've got to write a character that people will understand and glean towards. I can't just write happenstance. I got to know what I'm writing about. So I don't think it would be fair for someone to come in and try to tell anyone just because they took psychology classes uh, about themselves and what they need to do, because you don't have a degree hanging on your wall. But they need to understand the differences in people and understand whether or not they can live within those differences. It's important. It's important, Todd. And so I'm glad that you're a little scared of me
No, not you.
because you
Any
said,
female that has ever taken psychology classes, they scare me.
okay, but
My wife, there was a checklist. Like, I made her do an application. I'm not gonna lie. I said, "Where's your resume at?" And one of the questions was, "Are you or have you ever wanted to be a psychology major?" If she would have marked that box, we would have had some physical stuff going on because she was hot. I couldn't have got around that, but we would not have gotten married. I'm just saying, like, that's the truth.
oh my
That's it.
goodness.
That's it.
I just think that depending on what you're using it for, remember, I stated initially that I wanted to understand me, okay? I wanted to understand what makes me tick because I did not take on the hopelessness. I took on a fierce quality that says, I'm going to be the one that overcomes.
Yeah.
And why? Because I can. Because I understand now what let me down. Now, I'm not going to go out there and showboat my frailties. I'm going to strengthen them. And I figure any man that gets with me, even though I've taken a bunch of psychology classes, should feel that strength and be comfortable. Because I think women are so flighty. I grew up with brothers. All that emotional stuff, I put it on paper, but I don't live it. I don't understand why women do the things they do.
Yeah.
So that also helped me understand me. Because in my environment, you toughen up. You got a scratch on your knee. Your mom was the one that said it's going to be all right. Your brother said, kick the ball. It's just
Mm-hmm.
a little scratch. Are you going to play the game or not? And I'm going to play the game. I took fencing in high school at 4'11". I'm going to play the game.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what, with a lot of people, and me especially, I've coached youth sports. I've been coaching forever. And I tell parents all the time, if you want a coach that's going to give your kid a ribbon at the end of the season or a certificate, if you want a coach that's going to be soft and tell your kid how great they're doing all the time, even if maybe they suck, I'm not your guy. I'm not your guy. I've always wanted in my life somebody to kick me in the ass, somebody to tell
Right.
me the truth, somebody to say, look, you are failing right now. You need to change. You're doing this wrong. Like, you need to fix it. I've always been one to want to hold myself responsible and accountable for absolutely everything in life. And I think that's why my wife and I coincide together so well. Is she's the same way, but she also will give that to me. You know, if I got a pain or injury, like, I tore my knee and I got surgery. She didn't say, oh my God, I feel so bad. You want me to bring you chicken noodle soup? She said, I told you you're going to blow your knee out. She said, I don't know why you won't listen, you know? And it's everything else, right? Like, even when we have challenging things in business, she is a very to the point type person, and she's not going to give a bunch of fluff. She's not going to try to make me feel better about myself. We can have honest conversations with one another, and we have enough humility in our relationship that we have those open, honest conversations. And I think that I enjoy that, but not everybody thrives in that type of environment. But it sounds like you do as well. And that's probably why you and David are so great together.
Well, we have our ups and downs because, again, I do have a mothering side. But speaking to that, I'm thinking about when I first decided to go into filmmaking. Um, I wrote this book, The Rhythm of Love, because it was important for me to talk about soul searching and who is this person that wants to become someone in the world, and what is her background, and how is she different from all other backgrounds. And then I never pushed the book. I
So
wrote it.
what year did you start Soulfire Productions?
I started Soulfire Productions in 2000. No, yeah, 2017.
And that's right about the time you wrote the
Wrote the
book,
book in 2015.
2015. So a little ahead. What now was the book? What kind of propelled you to start Soulfire Productions, or did you have other aspirations for that?
Well, I'm a serial entrepreneur as well. I'm just not going to sit still. Uh, I retired from teaching, and I needed to go back to work. I was still too young, and so I started working at Synchrony Bank, and I was in a relationship that was just I shouldn't have been in, but it was so hard not to be in it. And then I started talking to other people within that environment, within the banking environment, which a lot of women there, and some guys would sit down and talk to me about their relationships. And I'm thinking, I'm going to write this book. So I wrote the book. I self-published, and I started selling a few at work. And I ran into one of the guys that bought the book because I told him, I said, you need to get this book for your wife. He said, let me explain something to you. My wife every night has a book ready and I read it to her. So when I buy the book, it's for me to read to her. And it's called The Rhythm of Love. I'm going to buy it. I saw him maybe 7 months later because Synchrony is a huge conglomeration of a banking business. And I said, hey, you never told me how you like the book. He said, oh, let me tell you, my wife's pregnant now.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, that was a good read. And so he started laughing. I said, you're kidding me, right? He said, no, I'm not kidding you. That book really fueled a lot of emotions, and she's now pregnant with our first child.
Oh my gosh, that hits home so hard, and I'm gonna tell you why. There was a night, and my wife and I were together, and next thing I know, she has me by my throat and starts kissing me, and like I don't know, it got a little rough, okay, and I'm like, we never had we've always had a great sexual life,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like, where's this coming from? Like, why'd she slap me? Like, I've never been slapped by a woman before. And you know what I find out? She had started listening to books on audio. She always listens to books now. And it's amazing I won't say transformation because like I said, we've always had a great physical life, but the different stuff that we've started doing or the small role playing here and there. So when I listened to this recent story, and I know you don't know it, but Shannon Sharp, where the girl tapes him on audio and he's talking about, um, I'm going to choke you, baby. And she's like, I don't want to be choked, daddy. But now she was saying, no, like, you can't choke me. I don't want this. I don't want the abuse. I'm like, if people took my phone calls with my wife from time to time when we're just having a little fun and they took segments of it and gave it out to like a news channel, I would sound like a monster. But it's not my fault. She started reading these books from people like you. It's your fault. And it's your fault that my wife slapped me for the first time.
Oh boy, but it felt so good, didn't it?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, the attitude that I took on was I need to make this a movie. And I had a friend that lived in Atlanta, and my son worked for Tyler Perry. That helped a lot. He was a production manager there for Tyler for some years, and me being his mom, he did not want to read the book. No, I don't want to read that book because you didn't already said too much. But I'll see what I could do. I'll talk to some people about it. Oh, so the young lady friend of mine that lived there said, I have a friend that is an agent, an indie agent, and I'm going to send her your book. And she gave me a call. She said, no, this is not a movie. I thought, oh, well, it was just me. She said, no, this is a television series. She said, you got so many layers here. It is so good. I can't put it down. So I said, well, I write like I'm in a conversation. I don't write literature like Toy Story or somebody, I just write. And she said, that's the goodness of it because it's believable. And so she took me to Cape Town, uh, South Africa. I became one of their usuals that appeared because we went back and forth for 3 years thinking we'd sold this story. They thought because we were going so often back and forth that we had the money to actually produce the film. And when it shook out that no, I don't have that kind of financing, I'm thinking you guys are actually going to start with the contract or whatever. And, here's my company. It's Soulfire. Fire emanates from inside of me. And my soul just will never die out. I'm a Scorpio. I'm a Phoenix. I'm going to
Yeah.
come back over and over and over again through the fire. Shaka Khan has a song like that.
Mm-hmm.
But at any rate, I ended up with some pretty difficult situations going back and forth there. I ended up thinking that I was going to get with a big filmmaker in the UK, Tom Delmar. Tom wanted me to hire a young man that rehire a young man that I fired, and I wouldn't do that, so I turned that deal down. Ava DuVernay with Array Productions, that's her company. She looked at it for 3 months. I thought, okay, this is good. She looked at it for 3 months before she contacted me and said, one of her staff, she's not really interested in doing this type of story. Uh, in the meantime, a guy that my son had started producing with contacted me and said, I want that story. So I gave it to him, and we thought we were on our way. And then the studio fell. So you talk about some ups and downs. But the next thing I know, I get another call. Light Chaser Pictures said, we're sending you a production agreement if you allow us to shop it. So that's where I am now.
Yeah. So you've had a lot of setbacks. I mean, you've spent time in other countries, but the one thing that you have not done is you've not lost your confidence and faith that this is a story that people need to hear and that they want to read, and that it will resonate with people from all different walks of life, right?
Well, yeah, because For African American filmmaking, most of the films have been addressing drug use, crime. I don't, slavery. Okay, I know where we came from, but where are we now? There's enough successful African Americans in our country and abroad. Why can't we depict some of those people on screen and allow others to see their struggles?
Yeah.
Because just because they have money doesn't mean their lives are so easy to live. And my protagonist came from money. She came from money. So she's not drug addicted. She's not one where her mother and her father are divorced. She came from a very uh, close knit, wealthy family. But she didn't know who she was because she went to white schools. Um, she didn't understand African Americans that had an income of someone working in a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she was arrogant, but she just didn't know those kind of people.
Yeah.
So the story's interesting. It's full of sex, though. I'm sure you picked up that sometimes I deal with sexual situations.
I didn't notice that about you.
You did not.
Okay, I'm lying. Yes, I did. Which is super cool. Like I think I challenge anybody, right? Like when people are, my wife and I weren't always good. We went through some very hard times in our relationship, and mostly my fault. All right, like I can admit that I'm not too tough of a guy to say that. Like mostly my fault. But I remember the periods in our relationship where our physical interaction suffered, and we had to find ways to get back. And we weren't happy in those moments, and the way that we ended up getting back was by going to a hormone doctor, and both of us, getting our levels right in our body, our testosterone levels and our hormones and all of that stuff. And when we did that, it took a little bit of time to find out the right things. But man, we were like 21-year-olds all over again, and that was several years ago. And once we fixed that, we never looked back, and we have like no complaints whatsoever. Like we have an amazing, intimate side of our relationship. And I'll tell you that when you have that, and this, I mean, you write about it, but that solves so many issues in a relationship. Is what I believe in, right? There's two things that have to be done in a relationship, in my opinion. And I'm just one guy, just a 5'5", 3/4 tall white guy from Midwest. I think if you figure out money in your relationship, financial freedom, and you figure out your intimacy in your relationship, it's hard to fail. It's hard to fail in a relationship. Those two things are so important. They at least they've been important in our relationship. What do you think? You agree, disagree with me?
Um, I wholeheartedly agree. I think that first of all, you have to have a mate that understands we need to work on it, not give it up. We need to find out what has disjointed what seemed to be initially a perfect union. What happened? So, hearing what you guys have decided to do really lifts my spirits in terms of I consider you a young person, not middle aged.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it gives insight to what people can work at and understand that needs to be built. Trust, number one. If you come to me and you say, this is not working, I trust to believe that it's not working. And why isn't it working? So if it's finances, then what makes the finances so poorly exemplified in our relationship, for want of a better word?
Yeah.
What do I need to work on? If it's sex, what can we do? How can we make it better? Because it started out great, but how can we make it better? The whole world lives on two things: food and sex. And if people don't understand the fall of humanity and what happened, we took on a bestiality, uh, spirit, because before we didn't need food, we didn't need sex. But when Adam started looking at the animals that he had to name, and they were getting it on, and they were eating, all he was doing was being a part of the elements like his creator. He was created like the Most High, right? So, therefore, sex and food was not necessary. But when Eve came out and she said, "Look, this is good." Now, they could call it an apple if they want to, but I don't choose to believe that it was an apple.
Mm-hmm.
And if I see animals doing things that I'm not doing so that they could create, because see, Adam was supposed to speak things into existence. That's what his father did. But he took on that bestiality that animals, creatures had. And sex became a part of it. Eating became a part of it. So now here we are in this world where food is important and sex is important. And we must understand both. If I have to deal with your hormonal cycle, I've got to know what's throwing it off. If I have to deal with your sexual prowess, I have to know what I'm lacking in. That you have to seek out something or someone else. I have to know that. When I write, poetry is encompassing your emotional stability. And what is it that draws people to what you write? Nikki Giovanni wrote about the environment that she grew up in. Langston Hughes wrote about the environment that he grew up in. Zora Neale Hurston wrote about the environment she grew up in, which was much more involved with human personalities. So my hat is off to you guys, because you have to be conscious enough to understand what's going to make your life fulfilled and continue on into your 60s and 80s and beyond, because sex doesn't go away at 80.
I sure hope not. I enjoy it.
Well, you'll continue once you realize how much of it you really need. You may not get it every time you think about it, but women don't dry up in their 70s, and men can still get a legitimate sexual erection all through life. But you do have to eat right. You do have to live right. You do have to not have the stress of not being able to pay your bills. Are you going to be able to go home and get in your bed, or is there a foreclosure notice on your door?
You know, I think through Soulfire Productions and poetry and writing the way that you do, um, it's people like you and projects and books and movies and books on tape and things like that that have allowed me to have such a great physical relationship with my wife. If my wife came home today and she said, "Listen, I want you to dress up like Peter Pan, and I want you to swing in from the ceiling fan and make some type of crazy sound and prounce on me with tights and then take advantage of me, and then next thing turn into some crazy motorcycle guy," like whatever she wants me to do, like I'm good, because we're open in our relationship with those things. But we wasn't always there, and it's because of the type of things that you're doing and that you've done, and the writings and the movies and things like that that help people in that part of their life. And I think as I listen to your story, it sounds like what you have working through Soulfire Productions and what you guys are trying to accomplish, it's one of those projects.
It's a platform to be realized.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it.
Well, I think what you're doing is beautiful. I'm pulling for you. I want to see you win. I want to see everything that you guys are working on with Soulfire Productions, come to fruition. And it will. You have such a beautiful heart, and you have a great husband, and you have a great story, and you're dedicated and you're passionate, and good things come to people that are like that. So I know some great things are going to happen for you guys on that front. But in the meantime, if people want to hear your poetry, if they want to hear some of your storytelling and things like that, where can they find you at?
Well, Todd, I must admit that I have been so busy producing my husband that I sell all my books through my so far productions 2000 at Gmail. They'd have to contact me there. I have not actually done a poetry reading. I've been producing those shows.
Yeah.
So being with you, this opportunity to actually even, I hate to say this world, but see what TikTok is all about. And I do have a YouTube page. I think it's under Hsanni Scott at Soulfire Productions or Soulfire. But I usually post those things that I'm working on in the film area and not myself. So you pushed me to say, I am a poet that still exists here in the year 2025. And we did a little session today because you want me out there. And it's because of you and people like you that recognize that I have some relevancy.
People need to hear your voice. And I'm going to help you make that happen. We're at least going to get you on the right footing. We're going to get you on the social platforms. People need to hear your poetry. I heard a couple of them earlier today, and I got to say, they were pretty good. So we're going to get that out there. You're going to be able to check out Hsanni on TikTok. By time you see this episode right now, you'll go to Hsanni Scott TikTok page. You'll be able to see her poetry. She'll have some storytelling on there, and you're going to be blown away the same way that we've been blown away by her story. Lots of big things to come from Hsanni, and we're excited to help her get there. So until next time, we'll see you guys.
Hold up, why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know where the pride